Hello and welcome to Impact with Kenny Anderson. I'm Kenny Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville. And it's my privilege on a regular basis to come to you with information that we think will be beneficial to you. Words of inspiration and encouragement are often characterized by this broadcast, and we hope that you'll enjoy the information that we have to share for you today. I'm very excited about the guests that we're going to be talking with. As you know, I have the opportunity to meet lots of people throughout this community, around this region and around the world. And my guest today is a young man who is indeed on a mission. On August the 1st, 2005, my guest was actually charged by the federal government with conspiracy to deliver and also to possess drugs. It's amazing to hear his story because he is actually in the studio today. And having those very, very serious charges being held against him at that time makes one wonder, how in the world do you move from that place to this place? In fact, today my guest is known as the most valuable motivator, a term that he embraces proudly because he is moving all over this country today, inspiring the lives of people everywhere. And today it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. James Edwards. James, welcome to the broadcast.
Hello, Kenny. How you doing?
Man, it's good to have you. I'm just going to reach over and just shake your hand because I'm just so excited to have you on the broadcast today. Every time we have a chance to interact, I feel the energy and the dynamism in your life.
Yes, sir.
I feel the joy in your heart and the passion in your spirit. And of course, today is going to be no different.
Absolutely.
You know, we always start from the beginning of stories, and your story in many ways begins on August the 1st, 2005.
Absolutely.
Talk a little bit, though, about what led to that point. What was going on in your life? What were you involved with, and how did you get to that point?
Absolutely. First of all, I thank you for the opportunity to be on the show, Kenny. And my story goes as follows in a nutshell to get to August 1st, 2005. My father was killed, Kenny, when I was 4. And my mom was addicted to drugs, crack cocaine in particular, until I was 17. And my grandmother, she was my caregiver. She raised me. And when I was 9 years old, my grandmother started having heart failure. And when I was 12, she passed away. I moved in with my mom, Kenny, and because of her drug addiction and alcohol addiction, every single day was verbal abuse, mental abuse, and physical abuse. And I can never forget the day that my grandmother, who I called my mother at the time, died. I was standing at her graveside, and I was looking in the air. The sleep was falling in my face, and I was like, Lord, what am I going to do with my mama? Everybody hate me, don't nobody love me. Lord, I just want my mama. And thoughts of suicide ran through my mind. But to speed it up and go fast forward, by the time I was 15, Kenny, I had sold my first piece of crack cocaine. By the time I was 18, I was traveling back and forth from Florence, Alabama to Detroit, Michigan on the Greyhound bus with drugs. By the time I was 20, I bought and sold my first kilo of cocaine. And in the neighborhood, in the streets, when I was 20 years old and bought a kilo of cocaine, the neighborhood was trying to make me like I was just this big celebrity. By the time I was 24, I stared death in the face on 4 separate occasions. One time in particular, I boarded a flight going to Houston, Texas with $84,000 in an attempt to buy 5 kilos of cocaine. And when I got there, the guy who I had been dealing with, he whipped a gun in my face. He pulled the trigger, but the gun didn't fire. Did I stop? No. I went home. To make a long story short, I went home and I laid in the bed that night just thinking, what if the gun would have fired? I know I can do something else. You know, one thought was saying you need to give it up. The next thought was saying keep going. I ignored it. August 1st, 2005, that's when the FBI and the DEA had enough of me. And they arrested me and indicted me to stand charged of conspiracy to attempt to deliver and conspiracy to attempt to possess 50 to 150 kilos of cocaine and 2,000 pounds of marijuana.
Wow. What kind of time were you facing as a consequence of those heavy charges?
Absolutely. When the motion of discovery came back and was moving forward within trying to debate whether I would plead guilty or go to trial, I was looking at 30 years to life. Had I went to trial, if I would have went to trial and lost, I could have actually got a life sentence because of the drug amount. I was looking at 17 years, 272 months for just a guilty plea. and not to cooperate with the government. And I had a third choice. I could either cooperate with the government and just fall on the mercy of the court. Apparently, I chose the third choice. I cooperated with the government, and by the grace of God, on April 17, 2006, Judge Sharon Blackburn out of Birmingham, Alabama, sentenced me to 96 months in federal prison.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow. How did you feel knowing that you were facing some very serious charges, and that, as you said, if you had gone to court and lost, you could have been behind bars the rest of your life, as so many young men are today?
Yes, sir.
How did you feel realizing that you had, in many ways, dodged a bullet?
Absolutely.
Once again.
At the time, I was trying to make myself feel like I didn't care, but I knew I did care. And I was just, the feeling is unexplainable, because I knew I'm going to be locked away for a long time. And it was just, it was like, man, it was hurting. It was a hurtful thought. But as I moved forward and eventually pled guilty and eventually went through the process and got the 8 years, my thoughts went from how bad that was to, I'm not going to be in here for a long, long time. What am I going to do when I get out? And when I started embracing, I can never forget, I got to prison. And the first thing I did, Kenny, was I really faced the fact of the reality that if I keep doing what I'm doing when I get out, next time they will catch me and I will get to 25, 30 years. And so I got away from my peers and younger people who was just, was in my arena, my network, who we was just crazy. And I began to place myself around older individuals who I consider had wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And in federal prison, you're privileged to be around people who are state senators and lobbyists and legislators and investment bankers, so to speak. And so I began to place myself around those type of individuals. And I can never forget one day I was with John Ford. His name was John Ford. He was a state senator from Memphis, Tennessee. And we were just talking, just going through the motions. And he said, man, let's go back to the first day that you put your hands on some drugs. He said, what made you sell them anyway? And right then, Kenny, I couldn't describe it. Right then at that moment, I didn't know. But the question continued to resonate in my mind over and over. And about 2 weeks later, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, man, I was in an identity crisis.
Wow. Wow. Which is not too unlike so many other people.
Absolutely.
Who are faced with choices in their lives.
Absolutely.
Not recognizing that choices lead to consequences.
Absolutely.
That can actually derail our lives. And of course, that's the story of so many people out there.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So you have now positioned yourself with people that are going to provide a positive influence for you, and you're listening to them.
Absolutely.
And you're saying to yourself, what if? What if I made some choices that moved me in a different direction? You were anticipating getting out. And at some point, that reality became true.
Absolutely.
You were released.
Absolutely.
What's your mindset at that point, and what are you thinking about doing at this time?
When I was released from prison, from that day that I said, man, I was in an identity crisis, I began to search for purpose. I was reading a book by The Purpose and Power of Vision by the great Dr. Miles Monroe. And he said that the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but living life without purpose. And I just began to search for my purpose. I began to go on a quest. And I believe God began to show me that anytime I opened up my mouth, people would listen. Anytime I talked, everybody would listen. And so I began to embrace the calling of being a messenger and a communicator. And so in prison, I began to line my life up with a lifestyle of being a leader and being a messenger. And so I read approximately over 900 books, Kenny, when I was in prison. I educated myself from sunup to sundown. It was pure growth for the next 5 years. And I got out of prison. I got out of prison saying, basically having a vision of what I thought that I was going to be doing. I wrote my story, wrote a book, and I said, I'm finna get out and I'm finna start selling my book. I'm finna start speaking in churches and speaking here. and I'm just gonna, you know, just do the right thing and just, you know, turn people's lives around. And when I got out, I'm at a place right now where my message has transcended. When I first got out, I started speaking a whole lot, and I was telling a lot of people about my story. But today, my first corporate engagement, Access America Transport, Chattanooga, Tennessee, the man told me, the person who called me to book me as the speaker, he said, we're not concerned so much about your story. We want to figure out how you bounce back, how you got to where you are today. And Kenny, it just really began to just settle in on me about the comeback, about how to come back. And I'm excited about it. The first thing that I understood was that when I came out, I felt like I needed a lot of money. I needed some money to buy me a car. I needed to buy me a house. I needed this. I needed that. But I understood that I didn't need a check. I needed to embrace the process.
Wow. Wow. You
got me?
Yeah.
And I came out, and I was willing to embrace the process. A lot of people want the glamour, the gold, the heels, but they don't want to go through the process.
A lot of people want the shortcut.
Absolutely. They
don't respect the process, that it takes time in order to get where you want to go.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm impressed because I'm a big reader too. I got to go back to that. I hope people didn't miss that.
Okay.
But you said two things that I thought were really important.
Absolutely.
Number one, you said you embraced the whole concept of being a leader. And I have a saying that I say often, that's leaders are readers.
Absolutely.
So you combine that whole notion of being a leader and embracing that with the fact that you read 900 books.
Absolutely.
So you definitely are validated as a leader on that basis alone.
Wow.
Knowledge and information is power. We know that.
Absolutely.
And the ability to take that knowledge and use it is what wisdom is.
Absolutely.
That had to be a tremendous accomplishment to be able to do that. I wonder, were you that motivated to read before you went to prison?
Wow.
Or was that something that consumed you in the process of changing your whole mindset about life?
Wow. Kenny, it's funny that you asked me that, because I was telling an individual Friday that before I went to prison, it's only one book I ever read in my life, Michael Jordan, Come Fly With Me.
Wow.
Because, you know, we all had hoop dreams.
That's right.
And when I got in prison and I began to embrace the call, I knew that I just started reflecting about, because I was looking into going into preaching and didn't know that God was going to push me into motivational speaking. And so I was just saying, I'm not going to be like all the other preachers, you know, that I've seen growing up in a Baptist church. If I'm going to speak, I'm going to have something to say. The quote that has been said, I don't know who it originated from, but they says that a fool speaks because he want to be heard, but a wise man speaks because he has something to say. And so, like I said, I haven't gotten a degree, so to speak, from UAH, Alabama A&M, but I've read every book Miles Monroe has, except a couple of them at this point. But I got out in the ones that I didn't have. I read those. Dale Carnegie, that's my guy. I read a lot of his stuff. Of course, T.D. Jakes and people like that, Tony Anthony Robbins. I just begin to consume myself on maturity, growth, and acceleration. I knew that I wanted to be an impact. I wanted to affect my environment and not get infected with his disease.
James Edwards, he's the most valuable motivator, and now you know a little bit about why he's called that. I want to talk to James a little bit more about just this whole developmental process that you're in right now.
Okay.
Because coming out of an experience oftentimes gives us a testimony. And of course, you have a very powerful one right now that you're allowing yourself to be used all over this nation. I follow you on Facebook, and I see you pop up different places. I see you in locker rooms around the country. I see you at various venues. I see you in auditoriums. I see you at lots of different places. Tell me what that whole process is like, and how that whole process motivates and energizes you as you touch other people's lives.
First of all, it's just such of a blessing, and I'm just so humbled for the phone to ring and for the opportunity to come. Like I said, when I started out with the mindset of I'm finna preach the gospel, I'm finna be in churches, and it just didn't work out like that, Kenny. I began to get calls from schools, high schools and junior highs. Of course, Florence High School, and I got a couple calls out of Atlanta, Creekside High Schools. And it just began to slowly but surely, and in a sense of fastness too, it just began to just push me into the motivational speaking arena. And having an opportunity, January 3rd, I spoke to the Kansas City Chiefs before they played the Indianapolis Colts. It's just life changing. It's just blown away. I never envisioned that in prison. I never saw it. But to be able to have the right to stand up and tell NFL guys that's making millions and millions of dollars, I'll never forget my last statement. I told them this, and I want y'all to win the game. I want y'all to be the best you can be in your career. But what about life off the field? Football is going to be gone in a second. It's something else inside of you that you can reveal that you're going to be called to do. It's football just a byproduct. You have a gift, you have a talent and an ability that football just got you here, but you're going to need to go to the next dimension and to pour into other people. To have men playing football walk up to me and say, bro, you changed my life. If I wouldn't have heard you today, man, I might would have just lost my mind, or so to speak. You never know what people going through. Right. Kenny, it's just an honor. It's just having the ability, you know, Steve Harvey mentoring weekend and the University of Alabama. As the journey continues, it motivates me. It just keeps me pumped up, and I'm just grateful and just humble.
And I know a little something about your role with Steve Harvey's mentoring weekend. You know, he has that big weekend where he brings in kids from all over the country to sit in on a lot of these kinds of empowerment sessions and motivational sessions. How did you get connected to that?
Oh, wow. 3 months after I got out of prison. And this is one of my points inside of the techniques of the comeback. Point number one, your network determines your net worth. A lot of people think they need a lot of money, but you just need a person to start it off. And I had a friend named Jason Allen. He played with the Miami Dolphins. Then he played for the Houston Texans. When I got out, he introduced me to this young lady that was doing some nonprofit work. And she called me down to Atlanta to speak on a panel, of a bullying panel. And I said, I don't speak about bullying. I speak about transformation. They're calling me a transformationist. And I speak about how to change your life. And she was like, I think you'll do great on a bullying panel. And I'm like, how? How am I going to relate bullying? To make a long story short, I got there 90 days after I got out of prison, and it was a bunch of people, a mayor, a lawyer, lobbyists, everybody's on the panel, and I'm the fall guy, pretty much the criminal who you know, tell you what happened when you do wrong, so to speak. And on the other end of the panel was Steve Harvey's daughter, Brandy Harvey. And I had an opportunity to speak, you know, for probably about 7 or 8 minutes. And after I finished, she said, your voice has to be heard. And me and her connected. And like I said, your network determines your net worth. And she brought me to the Disney Dreamers. Steve has a Disney Dreamer Academy. And it's in Orlando at Disney World. I went there first. I filled in as a speaker there. And then they brought me to the mentoring weekend. And they're saying I'm the heartbeat to the program besides Steve now. Because my story is so relevant to the type of kids that he's bringing in. And my goal is to tell them that my slogan is this: if I can change, if I can turn my life around, if I can fall down and get back up, if I can bounce back, anybody can. No excuses, only adjustments.
Your story resonates with people that hear it, but your story resonates with people who also, like Steve Harvey's daughter says, your voice needs to be heard.
Absolutely.
Now, very recently, you become connected with another big voice in America who wants your voice to be heard. And he happens to be one of my role models and idols when it comes to public speaking and motivational speaking. Tell us about this guy.
Mr. Les Brown.
My.
Okay. Yes, sir. Because like I said, I haven't been to college. And I hadn't been to school, but I also know from educating myself that if you are embarking in a field, you need to cultivate your gift. You need to feed yourself. You know, you need to educate yourself at all times. I try my best to go to at least 4 motivational conferences, motivational speaking conferences a year. At this point, I've made it a goal. 2014, I'm gonna go to 4. Last year, I went to 3. This year, because I'm always trying to show up in the tool. And I went to a motivational speaking event in California, and Les was presenting at the event. And after he presented, it was just so powerful that, you know, how you connect with people when you finish. And I connected with a guy, and I was just so pumped, and I was just started motivating him for a second. And we started talking. I started asking about what he do. He started asking about what I do, and I showed him a video. And I was like, this is my promo video right here on my YouTube channel. And he seen it, and his eyes got big. He's like, hold on one second. He got on the phone. He called Les. Les had just finished speaking on the stage. They just ushered him to his room. And so he called him, and he said, Les said, just give me about 10 minutes, I'll be down. And everybody else that went back in the conference, we had went around the hotel and was waiting on him. And Les came back downstairs, and when he came back downstairs, the guy introduced me to him, Kenny. And it's been on from there pretty much. He was pouring into me, and it was me and one of my other friends, Pete Key, that was he speaks too. He's in Florence or whatever. It was us two and a couple more guys, and Les was just pouring into us. And he said, if y'all ever need anything, you know, just call me. He give us his phone number, and I was like, okay. And after that, we were just so excited, we just ran out. And we're like, we met Les Brown, we got his phone number. And I talked to another brother downstairs after. He said, did you get a picture of him? And I was like, no, I didn't get a picture. How in the world I missed? But he's gone now. So, Kenny, I missed my flight. Going back the next morning, I missed my flight. Well, that night, Sunday night, I missed my flight. And so we had to be on the flight the next morning. Lo and behold, as we're up there getting our tickets to get on the plane, we turn around. We are walking through, we walking through the terminals, headed through, and lo and behold, guess who walking behind us all by himself?
Les Brown.
Les Brown.
Oh, my goodness.
We got an hour this time, and Les has an hour before he leaves. So I had the opportunity. Les, you remember us? Yeah, I remember y'all. We started talking, and I had an opportunity to show Les my video, the same video I showed the first guy. And when I showed it to him, he looked at me, and he said, I need you at my next conference. It's going to be in January. Can you make it? He said, I'll give you some one-on-one time, just me and you. He's like, I really want to pour into you. And I went to his last conference, and he's officially embraced me as I'm his little son, he say. He's my mentor. I had the opportunity to not only hear him and see him personally, but we ate dinner that night. And we spent a lot of time with him. He just poured into us. And now I'm on his platinum coaching team.
My.
And he said in 6 months, he said, he's going to make me into one of the greatest speakers that the world has ever seen. Wow. And I said, wow. Because he is one of them.
He definitely is one of them. And we can see how he can take raw clay and fashion it.
Wow.
And make it into just what he believes it can be.
Absolutely.
And I think, James, when people hear you speak, as I know that people have heard this broadcast today, that they feel the sincerity in what you're saying. They feel a conviction. They see your passion.
Yes, sir.
And I'm sure they wish you well, as I do.
Yes, sir.
As you move through this period of transition, it has to have been an amazing journey for you. To move from being in a position where you're facing 30 years, well, first of all, death.
Absolutely.
And then 30 years or more to life in prison, and then 96 months, and then being released, and now, you know, to be under the wing of the one and only Les Brown, one of the most powerful motivators in this world. Has to be an amazing journey. But I know you have the desire to reach back and bring other people forward, too.
Absolutely.
And as you work with young people today, and I know there may be lots of young people, even parents listening this afternoon.
Absolutely.
As you have had people pour into you, pour some hope into their lives as well, to help them understand that whatever is going on right now, that they can move beyond that point.
Man, no, without a shadow of a doubt. It's a quote that Les says that I'm embracing it. I had my own quote, but I have to take this one from him. Especially in areas, especially in areas where a lot of young kids or young children may be growing up, then they might not be privileged to see so many good examples. They might not be privileged to have opportunities for people to pour into them. One of the most profound things that I think I grabbed hold to when I was in prison was self-confidence, self-belief, and self-assurance. Les says this, he says, someone else's perception about you does not have to be your reality. And I want every single young person, a young person, high school, teenagers, junior highs, I don't care how bad your situation may be. I don't care if you feel like you might be full of mediocrity right now. I want you to know, whosoever I'm talking to, that my slogan, if I can change, if I can turn my life around, if I can fall down and get back up, if I can bounce back, anybody can. But I need you to find your lane. That's one of the most critical things it is in trying to become who you want to become. You have to find your lane. Every person on the face of this planet has gifts, talents, and abilities within them that need to be discovered, that need to be understood, that need to be developed and executed. Because the only way you're going to get self-fulfillment is that you have to find some within yourself that you know you can do, that you know you're good at. Self-confidence, self-belief, self-assurance, self-value, self-esteem, all of it comes from when a person finds their gift. And it's in you. It's not about what happens on the outside. It's all about what you believe on the inside.
James, I wish there was another 30 minutes. We'll have you come back because I know you're going to continue to grow and expand and develop. And I know you've really energized us and empowered us this evening with this information that you've been able to share. Tell people how they can get in touch with you. I know you've got a website.
Absolutely.
Just share that with people. Right
now, my website, it is under construction, but you can still go to www.mostvaluablemotivator.com. You can find me on Twitter, @James Edwards MVM. You can go to Facebook, James Edwards from Florence, Alabama. Instagram, Most Valuable Motivator. My email address, howtochange, HOW2change@gmail.com. You can contact me for engagements, for coaching, for counseling, for consulting, and just to connect. You can contact me to connect. I will be happy to have you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the most valuable motivator. He's James Edwards, and we're really delighted that he had a chance to stop by on his busy world tour. I mean, he's just traveling everywhere all the time, but took some time to be with us today, and we're appreciative of that. We hope that you'll join us again for another edition of Impact with Kenny Anderson. As always, we're trying to shine a light on all the great and positive things that are happening in our community and keep you inspired and motivated. We'll talk to you again soon. Take care.